Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Are We on the Same Page? I'm your host, Dave Thomas Rocker. Haven't made a video on this channel in a while. I'm going to try to make this a weekly event from now on if I can. But anyway, today I'm going to talk about the history of invention. This is going to be my first of 6 videos on the history of invention. In particular, I'm gonna give you what I consider the top 10 inventions of the Stone Age, which I am defining as being between 5 million BC and 10,000 BC, roughly. And before I get into this talk, I want to give another plug for my book here called My Spiritual Journey. I don't know how many of you guys have bought this book. I don't think too many because I've only sold a few copies, but it's available on Amazon. Just look for it on Amazon.com. You can type my name, Dave Thomas Rocker. I think there's a number of books called My Spiritual Journey, so you want to make sure to type my name as well, Dave Thomas Rocker. That's my pen name, by the way. But you'll find this book if you do a search for it in there. And I think it's a good book, and I think you guys will enjoy it. I spent about a year and a half writing it, and it's kind of I think of it sort of like a modern day version of Poor Richard's Almanac. It's got a lot of hundreds of quotes in it about things I've discovered about how I think you can live a good life, and it's kind of spiritually related, but it's my own spiritual views. It's not, I'm not, I don't subscribe to any mainstream religion. This is stuff I mostly discovered on my own. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention it. But let's get into today's talk. So, like I said, I'm going to talk about the what I consider the top 10 inventions of primitive times, and decided to divide human history into 6 eras. So, the 6 eras, and I'm going to have top 10 lists of inventions in each of these eras. Today's going to be my first. I'm going to talk about the history of primitive inventions, and so I'm defining primitive human society, also known as Stone Age, to be between about 5 million BC. That's around the time in which the first humans are believed to have when humanity began, and up to about 10,000 BC, which was about the time of agriculture, the Neolithic Revolution. I guess some people think that primitive man went on until about 4,000 BC. I don't agree with that. That's around the time that the first ancient civilizations were known, like the ancient Egyptians and the ancient, Chinese, all the river valleys. But the reason I think most people believe, that humanity started around 4,000 BC, some people think that's when the Bible, according to the Bible, that's when God created the world. But that's about the time writing began, okay? We just don't know much about what happened before 4000 BC because there were no records of it. That doesn't mean that there weren't civilized men before then. And I really don't like the attitude that there weren't. I mean, the Native Americans had their own agriculture. They didn't have writing, but they had agriculture. They were growing their own food. I don't consider them primitive. You know, you can think what you want about them, but anyway, then that's enough of that. But then the next era would be what I call ancient civilizations. This is from around 10,000 BC, when people were first farming, and the first cities were built shortly after that, until about 500 AD. That was around the time of the end of the Roman Empire. And most people consider that the end of ancient times, at least the ancient Western society. And then after that, you have the Middle Ages, medieval era. That lasted for about 1,000 years, from around 500 to about 1500. I read it as 1499. Now I'm doing exact years because we do have a lot of records of exact events. Starting around. Yeah, I guess. Well, there were some known in ancient times, but there were a lot more known. I guess by the late Middle Ages. So we can kind of separate events from 1499 to 1500. That's why I did it that way. And then the fourth era is the Renaissance. I think you guys all know about the Renaissance. I think most people believe it started before 1500. I guess I just picked a nice round number here. I think most people believe the Renaissance probably started around 1450, actually. Usually it's marked, the end of the Middle Ages is sometimes marked with when, I guess, the fall of Um, I think it was Constantinople when it became Istanbul. But I don't know if there's any specific event that marks the beginning of the Renaissance. But, it was around mid 15th century when we had a flood of new ideas and new inventions, and marked a big departure from the Middle Ages, which is often called the Dark Ages. And the Renaissance was not a dark era at all. If anything, it was a very enlightened era. And I'd say that ended around 1749. And then the next big year was the Industrial Revolution, which started around 1750. Again, I'm giving a nice round number here. But that was around the time when James Watt built the first steam engine. And I think you guys all know that once we had steam power, then we had factories and we had, machines to do a lot of amazing stuff. Eventually, we got electricity and we got all this amazing, invention relying on artificial power. Before that, almost all human energy was muscular. So the Industrial Revolution was a really groundbreaking era, and a lot of great inventions came from that era. Finally, we've got the modern era, which I'm saying began around 1900, and I don't know when it's going to end. Modern just means contemporary, so modern is kind of a bad word, but I mean, sometimes people talk about postmodern, but that's a little bit of what do you call it, oxymoron, but because it's 2024 now, I'm going to say the modern era, at least as far as I'm doing it here, ends in 2024 because that's now, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future yet. I'm not a prophet. I'm not pretending to be one. So anyway, those are the eras, and so now I'm going to give my top 10 list of what I think are the 10 most important, and I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying, I guess 10 most, maybe groundbreaking inventions of primitive times, the ones that had the most impact on our culture, I guess, for better or for worse. So number 10, cave paintings. This is the first known works of art, if you like. And I haven't actually seen these cave paintings. The picture on this slide shows some very beautiful cave paintings from, I guess it's called the Chauvet Cave in southeastern France. I've never been there. I hear you have to reserve it like a year in advance just to see it. But these are some beautiful paintings of buffalo, I think, bison, and from around 50,000 years ago. Pretty amazing that people actually did this drawings, and this is art. I mean, we don't know why these cavemen drew these pictures, but they must have had some important significance to them, obviously. They were motivated enough to draw these images of bison on the walls of their caves, and we don't know the reason they did, but we can, whatever the reason, we definitely can call it art. So that was the beginning of art, I think. And then number nine, music. That's another form of art. If painting is visual art, then music is auditory art, art for the ears, if you like. And the first musical instrument that has been discovered was discovered at it's called the Dibja Babe flute. It was found at Dibja Babe Cave in Slovenia in 1995, pretty recently, and the age is estimated to be between 50,000 and 60,000 years old. So I'm writing this 50,000 BC here. We don't know very accurately, but that's when we had the first music. And anyway, then number eight, numerals. Now we're getting into math, my strong area. And I'm saying the invention of numerals, not numbers. I don't think numbers were invented, by the way. I think numbers were discovered. I'm a mathematical Platonist. I think numbers exist independent of humanity. They're just part of the universe. But numerals are the way we express them. We all have our own convention notations for representing numbers, and those are called numerals. And the first known numerals appeared on this very famous artifact called the Ashango bone. It was found in the Belgian Congo, which is now the I guess it's the Democratic Republic of Congo. but at the time it was called Belgium Congo. I don't think it was even a country. I think it was part of Belgium in 1950. But what they discovered, pretty amazing discovery. They found this bone, which turns out to be the markings on this bone have been dated to be around 20,000 and 18,000 years BC, I believe. And we don't know what the purpose of these markings were. We do know they were tally marks. I mean, I haven't written this out in detail, but there's three columns of these tally marks on this bone, and each of the tally marks has a series of lines, tallies between 3 and 19 tallies in a set, and you can count all the tallies in each column, and if you add up the numbers in each column, they're 48, 60, and 60. Pretty round numbers. And we're pretty sure that we don't know what the purpose was, what the significance of these numbers were. Some people think it might have been a game that the Shangos invented when they drove through these tallies. Others think it might have had some astronomical significance. Maybe they were counting days in the lunar cycle. I mean, there's like 29 and a half days in a lunar month, so 60 is about twice of that. We really don't know, but we're pretty sure that they were counting something, and these are the first known marks for counting. So pretty monumental discovery. And, numerals, I think, were the beginning of math. So pretty amazing invention. And number 7, pottery. Um, Pottery, I guess, is another art form, but it's not just an art form. It also has a practical use. I mean, pots, obviously, you put things in pots, and pots have been used in pretty much every culture in the world, starting in primitive times. And, you know, I think every known culture today has pots, has pottery, has ceramics, and they all use clay to make them. And, you know, there's beautiful pottery. And, the pictures shown on this slide show two examples of some very old pots, not the oldest known, but they're among the oldest known. These were made around 6500 BC, about 8500 years ago, when they were found in the mid Euphrates Valley. Now I think they're at the Louvre Museum in Paris. And I think they're very beautiful too, and they kind of look modern almost. And another thing I think that's really great about pottery, it stood the test of time. I mean, there's a lot of modern pottery. There's still potters today. My brother-in-law is a potter, by the way. He's a ceramics artist. He's made some beautiful pottery, some beautiful ceramics, and beautiful and practical. So I think that was a great invention. And then number 6, now we're getting into weapons technology, the spear. I'm a pacifist. I'm not a big fan of weapons. But like I said, I'm not judging these inventions based on good or bad. I'm judging them based on their significance. And, there's no denying that weapons have been a significant development in human society, for better, for worse. And a spear was one of the first weapons ever to be made, I guess. The first known spears were built around 400,000 BC. This is a wooden spear that was found at the Clacton. It's called the Clacton Sphere. It was found at the Clacton at Sea in England in 1911, and it was dated from around 400,000 BC. And spears have been used in warfare through most of human history till modern times. So a lot of people have been killed by spears, and they weren't just used for warfare. In all fairness, they were also used for hunting. I guess primitive man used them to hunt wild animals, kill wild animals. So, I guess they needed to do that. We needed to survive when we were cavemen. We needed to hunt off predators. Unfortunately, we ended up using it against each other later. But anyway. And then number 5, another weapon, bow and arrow. And This was around 65,000 BC. The first bows and arrows were actually built before the first. No, they were built after 400,000 BC. But they're very old, and the bow and arrow. I think this marked a big. This was a big development in weapons technology because I mean, think about it. These bows, you can hunt at a distance with them, right? With a spear, you have to actually, impale whatever you're killing with a spear that you're holding. You're still holding the spear when you're killing an animal or killing another person. But with a bow and arrow, all you have to do is pull back the arrow against the bow. The I guess the string at the end of the bow, and the thing will go like 100 miles an hour. It depends how I guess developed the bow is. Maybe the old ones you can only do about 20, 30 miles an hour, but you can hunt at a distance now. You can shoot a bow and hit something, and you don't have to be right there. Which is a big advantage, obviously. And we used them both for hunting, and we also used them for warfare, just like the spear. And we still use them today. And now we use them mostly for recreation. Archery is still a pretty popular sport throughout most of the world. I think it's still even an Olympics event. So, and I know my uncle liked archery. He saw the movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and that inspired him enough to buy an archery set. Go figure. And his girlfriend, I guess they weren't quite going together yet, but she was highly infatuated with him, and so she decided to buy her own archery set right after he did. Go figure. And it's kind of interesting because Cupid, in ancient Greek mythology, he was an ancient, one of the Greek gods. He had the bow and arrow, and he would shoot an arrow at a woman's heart. That's how according to that legend, that's how women fell in love with a man. Shoot him in the heart. I don't know. I guess that's kind of like you think of warfare as being victorious over your enemies, and you can think of, falling in love as being victorious over the woman you love. So I guess there is kind of an analogy there. Cupid, draw back your bow and let your arrow go straight to my lover's heart. From me, nobody but me, Sam Cooke. Anyway, enough of that. Number 4, clothing. Now this is a veg you don't hear much about most of the time, but think about it. I mean, I don't think practically anybody can deny that we need clothes. I mean, at least we needed them in the ancient times. We needed them just to protect ourselves from harsh weather, to keep us warm, and to protect ourselves from insects and so practical needs for clothes in primitive times and ancient times. And then there was also, I guess, we didn't want to expose ourselves in mixed company. And I don't know where that convention came from. Maybe we just didn't want to show our private parts to, in public. And, I don't know if that's going to continue in the future. I don't know. But for now, at least, we still seem to need clothes. And it's fine. And clothes aren't just for practical use. I mean, yeah, they do keep us warm in the winter, but they're not just. I don't think we just wear clothes either because we want to hide our private parts. I think we do it because it's a fashion. I mean, we like to present a certain image of ourselves by the clothes we wear. And I think in most societies, men and women wear different kinds of clothing. It's not conventional for men to wear dresses, for instance. And women dress differently from men, and we wear different clothes for different occasions. I mean, some people wear uniforms. I don't like uniforms, but the military's always had uniforms, and a lot of other professions require uniforms, and we have to look professional at a lot of jobs, and when we're going out on a date, we want to look nice for the person we're going out with. We want to try to attract them. So, there's a lot of practical uses for clothes. Also, sports. Sports require certain types of clothes. Jerseys for football, or I mean, So, I don't, I could go on and on about the importance of clothes, but they're a very big part of our society, and they started in primitive times. The first clothing we don't know exactly when the first clothing was made. People have guessed around 100,000 years ago, around 100,000 BC. I think they were started in Africa, like most things. But anyway, enough said about clothing. Then number three, housing, houses. This is a really big invention. I mean, think about it. I think housing is a basic need. I mean, I think we all need roofs over our heads. I think most people can agree with that. Unfortunately, not everybody in the world has them. And I think it's pretty horrible that we don't. At least here in America, which is the richest country in the world. But I don't want to get into politics too much. But we can't doubt that housing is essential. It's a basic need. It protects us. Not only practically, we need a roof over our head to protect us from rain and snow and harsh weather, but, I mean, it kind of, the beginning of civilization, I think, involved having houses. I mean, it's kind of a way of demarcating our property. I mean, that's something I guess I'm not a huge fan of because I'm not really a capitalist, but, it did, and another thing about housing is that I think it's one of the things that's unique to humans. I mean, I don't think any other animal in the world, except maybe you could argue worker bees or ants, I mean, just about every other animal in the world lives by nature. They're at the mercy of nature. We're one of the few animals in the world that build our own houses to protect us. And not just houses, but other kinds of buildings. And the first known houses were built as early as about 1.8 million BC, and I've actually been to this place where they found the first houses. It's called the Aldovai Gorge in Tanzania. I went there with my uncle back in 2016. We took a safari to Africa, and one of the places we went was the Aldovai Gorge, where some of the first humans were known to have been found, and they found the first houses along with some of the first tools. Pretty amazing sight. Um, anyway, so that's houses. And then number two, now we're getting into some really important stuff here. The control of fire, the discovery of fire. I mean, I know fire was the discovery. Obviously, fire is a natural phenomenon. I mean, there's been fires throughout all of the Earth's history. You get a fire every time a meteor hits, or every time you have a thunderstorm. When a tree gets struck by lightning, it usually causes a forest fire. So obviously, there've been fires throughout the whole Earth's history, but man had to discover fire, not just its existence, but how to control it. And think about this. We don't know exactly when this happened. I mean, people have guessed. People have estimated that humans had the first use of fire around a million BC, about a million years ago. And think about it. I mean, I think the discovery of fire was really a monumental discovery in, the beginning of humanity because, fire has just allowed us to do so many important things. I mean, the most obvious use is campfires, when you can make a fire and you can control it. You just put as much wood as you need and you can pour water on it if you don't want it to grow too much, and you can sit around the campfire and sing songs. And not only that, you can roast marshmallows. But think about primitive man. I mean, we had to cook with fires, right? Before fire, we couldn't cook food. How were we eating before we had fire? I guess we were just, I guess just eating bugs or eating animals we could find, but we couldn't cook it. I don't think food tasted very good until we had fire, and it wasn't nearly as healthy. I'm sure fire helped us, helped end a lot of diseases because, you cook out all the parasites in your food. And, that was just the first use of fire. And of course, there's, been dozens of other uses of fire throughout human history. I mean, now, we use them to light cigarettes, we use them for heating, we use them for heating our houses, I mean, I could go on and on about the uses of fire all over the place. But fire was definitely a key. Controlled fire was a key human invention, probably one of the greatest ones. but not number one. Number one on my list is tools. I mean, this might even be the greatest invention of all time. It's kind of hard to say, but this is the earliest known invention. The first tools were found around 3.3 million years ago, just shortly after man came out. I mean, I think the first humans, first human remains have been discovered were about 5 million years old, and I don't know if the first humans we've discovered actually known to have made tools, but not too long afterwards. We have found tools from as early ago as 3.3 million years ago. And we found them in Kenya. And here's a picture of some of the oldest tools ever discovered. And tools, I mean, I don't think I have to convince you guys how important tools are. We still use them today. I mean, we use tools to make other things. So tools are kind of like the starting point of building things, of inventing things, or making things. We can make things, we can repair things. I mean, our lives would not be at all the same without tools. I can't even imagine society without tools. I think tools are probably the most essential invention to our lives and to humanity. So thank God for tools, or thank man for tools, however you want to look at it. Anyway, that concludes my video for tonight. Thank you for watching, and keep thinking. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.